I want to hand over to Eric now. But before I do so, I want to just introduce Eric's section. So it's wonderful to tell your transformation story if you have a story to tell. But what if you don't have a story to tell? And what if you need to work on that impact strategy in order to tell your story? And that is what Eric is going to take you through now.
Irosha, thank you very much. So I'm just going to take you through a transformation strategy and considerations that you should bear in mind in developing a transformation strategy. And also I'm going to talk about the interrelationship between a triple B scorecard and the actual transformation strategy itself, of which Irosha's identified for us what exactly do we mean by transformation. There's a saying that goes that if you don't know where you're going to end up somewhere else. So therefore, very important that we start off by designing a strategy and also thinking about what transformational impact do we want to achieve in society in order for us to tell the story that we want to tell. So some of the features of a transformation strategy is firstly that we need to align our transformation strategy with our business strategy. So we need to understand what is our business objectives, what are our transformation objectives, and how can we set up our transformation strategy, our initiatives, our budgets in order to achieve and to support that overall business strategy. A second feature is that the strategy would consider all stakeholder expectations, not only internal stakeholders, but also external stakeholders. And in order to understand where we fit into the picture, we need to know where we stand with regard to our peers and our competitors. Where should we be aiming for? What kind of impact do we want to achieve? And what story do we want to tell on the back of that impact that is created by our transformation strategy? The strategy should be practical, and we should also be able to measure the impact so that we can talk to the impact and that we can tell the story of the impact that we are creating in society. We want to achieve further business benefits. So there's an interrelationship between the BE scorecard, your BE level, harnessing the initiatives that you are already doing or that you may be doing for the scorecard, and also attuning those initiatives to achieve the beyond the scorecard impact that we wish to achieve and that supports the business and that we can tell a good transformation story about. We want to create shared value, so not only build company value and individual value, but also create value and add value to society in everything that we do from a transformation perspective. And then a strategy needs to be sustainable. We want to ensure that we can continue supporting and creating this impact, and that it is not only a once-off, but that it is embedded into our organization in terms of budgets, in terms of feedback, in terms of the impact and the measurement thereof. So how do we differentiate between a scorecard plan and a transformation strategy? So firstly, a scorecard plan is looking at the contributions and the inputs that we do into a BE scorecard, and the plan would focus on scorecard points. So it's quite different from a transformation strategy, which in turn focuses on what is the transformational and the transformative impact that we would like to achieve in society. And it is built around a scorecard plan. So the budgets that we have for BEE and the targets that are set by element, these budgets power initiatives, and these initiatives addresses both the scorecard, but they also address the impact that we want to achieve. So there's a clear interrelationship between the transformation strategy and the plan, the scorecard plan, and a big difference between the two. The transformation strategy needs to align, it's got to support business, And we also want to integrate the transformation strategy into the management systems of the company. So in other words, that there's a responsibility structure, an accountability structure, management structure, and that the KPIs that are in place within the organization also take into consideration transformation and the BE scorecard that is the driver. So when we think about a transformation strategy, we need to be clear why we're doing it. And we need to be clear on what is the impact we want to achieve and what is the story that we want to tell on the back of that impact. And we would also be wanting to achieve scorecard points by the design of the different initiatives that we undertake. In deciding what we want to do, we need to identify initiatives that will be impactful, that will be effective, and that are also efficient, and that are recognized on the BE scorecard. So how much of this will I do? That depends on budgets. We want to quantify the budgets that we have available and also the budgets that we want to contribute towards the BE scorecard and that we would need to implement in order to achieve the transformation impact. And we need to make sure that these are correctly calculated and calibrated. So by calibrated, we mean that we need to be on the same page with the BE verification agency so that we know what this is going to be translating to in terms of a BE scorecard and certificate. So the strategy development process firstly starts off with a contextualization, agreeing on where we want to go, what the scope is that we want to achieve. There's a knowledge sharing portion to make sure everyone's on the same page. And there's the setting of a governance structure for the project to make sure that it is appropriately designed, but also implemented subsequently. The next phase is to establish the baseline. Typically, this could be either a verified scorecard, BE scorecard, so that we know what the gaps are, we understand what the contribution targets are, and we also understand what the financial budgets are that are available for the implementation of the scorecard. We would look at a competitor analysis, understand where the organization is within the BE landscape and the competitive landscape. One would map your existing initiatives and evaluate whether these initiatives are achieving the objectives that you would wish to achieve. And then lastly, look at perceptions, both internally and external perceptions in terms of the baseline and also objectives. The next phase is to identify and clearly define the transformation objectives and also how do we define success within the organization. We would look at business objectives, transformation objectives. We would look at in issues within the sector. We would look at the business issues, material sustainability issues, and then also try to identify how can we achieve shared value for the company and also for society. The next phase of the strategy development process is to identify different scenarios and different possible options, and also to look at focus areas. What are the transformation focus areas that we want to target, and what options can we develop for these different focus areas? One can then analyze your options and against the value drivers, the definitions of success that we've identified, and then test options within the organization to see just how achievable these are they palatable, and are they implementable? The next phase is to then plot a strategic path to see how we want to develop both impact and the BE scorecard, and to select the appropriate options that we want to pursue, and then design a strategic path in terms of pursuing these options and testing those paths with the leadership. The last phase of the process is to formulate the strategy, to document the strategy, to present and socialize, and to get ultimate buy-in and sign off of that strategy. And once that is achieved, we look at an implementation plan and a governance structure to implement the strategy that has been designed. So if we look at the interrelationship between the baseline scorecard, the scorecard plan, and the transformation strategy, firstly, when we establish our baseline, we've got to make sure that the baseline is credible. So if we put garbage into the scorecard, we're going to get garbage out. So only recognizable initiatives need to be plotted in the baseline scorecard. And we also need to make sure that these can be evidence that they will survive a B verification. And based on that scorecard, we then design the scorecard plan that identifies budgets, identifies contribution targets, and also identifies initiatives that will support both the transformation strategy and also the scorecard. We'd look at an annual refreshment of the transformation strategy to ensure that we keep supporting business strategy and objectives, and to ensure that we have the desired impact on all our stakeholders and society. We look at the integration of that strategy into the management system of the company, and also then review and do a periodic update of the scorecard plan that has the contributions to the scorecard itself. So the transformation strategy is underpinned by implementation. I've mentioned that many of the initiatives that we have to drive the strategy would also be driving the BE scorecard. And in order to sustain this process, we annually need to look at a refreshment of our strategy, our scorecard plan, and that is the planning stage that we have typically just before the financial year and during Q1, where we need to look at budgets and a forecast scorecard. Thereafter, the implementation stage begins throughout the actual full financial year, and either at half year or slightly below after that, or even monthly, a monitoring process needs to be put in place in order to monitor the state of implementation and also the impact of implemented initiatives. And thereafter, there's the verification process that leads to the BE certificate, that to many people is an indication of transformation. However, as mentioned, the transformation strategy that utilizes the BE scorecard looks at overall impact that is achieved in society. So we need to work our plan, and as part of the implementation process, a Gantt chart is very useful to make sure that we know what we're going to be doing, who's going to be doing that, and by when that will be done. And also to identify a governing structure to say, okay, but who's responsible, who's accountable, and to make sure that there are KPIs in place. A regular transformation committee team should be put in place as part of the governance structure to make sure that the update meetings are held with a tailored agenda, and that any issues that are identified are timeously escalated to ensure that obstacles are removed or that expectations are managed. And there needs to be alignment with solution providers. These solution providers need to be managed, and communication needs to be in place to make sure that effective implementation happens. And then the setting and monitoring of KPIs within the organization to ensure that we get traction and the strategy is translated into a reality. So thinking about our transformation story that we want to tell and a transformation strategy that we need in place in order to tell this, we need to ask ourselves, what are our challenges? And do we understand our challenges? Because this will lead us to where do we need to complement ourselves in order to achieve success and to be able to tell a good story on the back of a good transformation strategy. So firstly, we need to know, can we and have we correctly identified our transformation impact and our desired impact? Secondly, do we have the knowledge and do we have the technical understanding of developments that may impact not only on our transformation strategy, but also in the legislative environment and the BE environment. Do we have sufficient focus on transformation, or is core business taking priority, and with transformation being seen as a non-core process, is it being neglected? And do we have the right competence? Do we have the experience and the ability to implement? And then are we sufficiently objective? Are we not seeing our own constraints and our own mistakes? So an objective view is very valuable. And lastly, do we have the capacity to actually tell a story, to design a story, and to design and implement a effective transformation strategy? So that kind of self-reflection is very important in order to identify where we need to be complemented in order to be successful. All right. Thank you, everybody, from my side.
Just on behalf of Eric and myself, thank you very much for making time to be with us and listen to us today. I'm sure you know how to get hold of us. Should you need to, we'll be happy to chat to you further about what we've shared with you today.